Hey Soul family, this is a video about retrograde. I've had the idea for a while and I've been inspired already for a long time to share something about retrograde because very often we get to hear even on magazines or online about Mercury retrograde, and that's supposed to be like a bad thing. There's a lot of memes about it, and even people that don't really care or know anything about astrology, they kind of know the Mercury retrograde, it's a thing. So it has become part of common popular culture. So in this video, I want to share with you what is a retrograde, not only astrologically, but even more astronomically, because that's actually the inspiration and the reason why it's a thing also astrologically. But I'll tell you more later. And then also a bit from the historical, sociological point of view, what's the relation? Why is it a thing? And here it's the moment to share with you my disclaimer. So I gathered this information to help us feel safe and comfortable to play around with spirituality, to play around with astrology, to play around with symbols and all those kind of things that are more creative, intuitive, belonging to the imagination, to the magic of little things in life. So in every video, I kind of make it a point to invite people to take the information I share with playfulness and really allow yourself to recognize the importance of play, because if we didn't play around with some things, we will have a life on only reasoning, only black and white. And these little things like knowing why the planet is in a special place and what that could mean for us doesn't have to be fact. It can be a belief. It can be something that comforts us, that brings the colors where reason brings only this black and white. So you have been warned. Don't come at me asking me to bring you data and to want to debunk spirituality. I'm all for it. You already win. It's not something that it's factually true, but it's still fun and interesting. So without further ado, what is a retrograde? So astronomically, it's an illusion, basically, because all the planets are going around the sun, but at different speed because of the different distance to the sun and the gravity that it pulls. There is times where we see a planet almost doing a loop on itself in its trajectory. And it looks like instead of going all in the same direction as we know the planets are, it looks like it's going back. And so that's what creates the loops. I am more than happy to share. I found a couple of videos where there's a physical representation of it, like an animation, so you can get a better idea. But basically what I want to focus on is the meaning. So since a very, very long time, we have been looking towards the sky and seeing this illusion, seeing this loop as basically sent us on a loop. You know, it's like what people then started to wonder, oh, if the stars, they do like this, does that mean something? And it's in their wondering, in their, trying to explain their life through planets that we have. It's almost like a tradition. This Mercury retrograde really does mess up with your life just because it's like some very deep social conditioning, because it's been going on for centuries. Since the Romans gave the name to the planets, like it gave the name to 5 of them, the one that you could see with the naked eye. It has been observing this retrograde. It has started to affect the way we relate to it. So what I mean, a bit more simply, have we been Romans at the Roman times, we would have spent so much more time looking at the stars, and probably would have been much more common that people would know about how they move. Like right now, I don't know if it's common knowledge to look at the sky and know where the stars are, even though it's a beautiful hobby to have. But yeah, so at that time, we gave that advice. We saw a loop. We're like, oh my God, Venus, it's going onto itself. There's something wrong with the goddess Venus. So, since ancient times, we have trained ourselves to look at the stars and give it some meaning. And probably that meaning was passed down, and now the culture has changed profoundly. We don't believe usually in the Roman gods. However, the tradition of calling the planets after the gods stayed well beyond the lifespan of the Roman Empire. So it's something that continued into the 1600s, 700, and so that's how we got the other planets named. So obviously, at that point, it wasn't a religious things anymore. Like the discoverers of new planets weren't trying to give honor to the gods, but because the set was already started, that's it continued. So I find this already interesting point of reflection, because the culture changes, yet we keep carrying always something from behind. And that's why also, even though I know a lot of people who don't really care and don't really believe in astrology, they still know their zodiac sign. Like, it's weird how widespread this is beyond whether we care or not for it. It's almost like a religion. And at that time, interesting enough, Galileo also was an astrologer. Like, science and spirituality were not deemed as opposites, but just like one explains the how and the other more the why. So in this period, science and astrology kept going together. And so this brings us to what actually is a retrograde from the astrological point of view. And I hope you'll see the connection to the astronomical and the sociological, historical explanation of retrogrades. I hope you see the interpretation of astrology and why it's a good idea to know when the retrogrades are happening. So I'm gonna start by sharing. Well, there's retrograde of many planets, but this year we're gonna have 4 in Mercury, and we are currently right now still under Venus retrograde. So I'm not gonna share about what every retrograde means in astrology, but I'm just gonna focus on the one we are both influenced by right now, which is Mercury and Venus. So a retrograde, it's a moment where we reflect, we take a step back, like we do a loop, we do a way around the topics that are related to that god. So this is how it evolved. People would see something astrologically doing a loop, and they're like, okay, let's take this as an opportunity to also go around and in that way worship that god or that goddess. And so still to this day, a retrograde is a time where we take a moment and we focus on the theme of that planet. So you see how mythology, science, they all come together. In particular, I'm going to tell you in this video about Venus and Mercury and what to do about it. And as we go along in the year, I can share more about the other retrogrades that are coming and what they mean and what we can do about it if we want to, if it's fun and playful. And I can also include, maybe in the link or in the email somewhere, the full calendar. I mean, it's just like one Google typing away, full retrogrades. But I found a nice article where they're all listed. And so if you're interested, it might be down below or in the email. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Now I'm going to tell you about the first of the retrograde we have been experiencing since the 19th of January and concluding finally the 29th of January. So from the end of 2021, so 19 December 2021, we started to be in Venus retrograde, and we're going to be for about another week, because on the 29th of January, Venus retrograde will be over. And so what is about Venus retrograde? Well, Venus is the goddess of beauty, lust, and love. So these are the themes that are recommended for reflection and improvement and focus and attention during Venus retrograde. So we are asked to find the beauty in ourselves. We are asked to find the beauty in others. We are asked to be mindful of our beauty and embody the beauty that we have and that we are, and we can definitely beautify ourselves. But in Venus retrograde, it's said to avoid big changes in look, because this is the time we want to reflect on the beauty we already have. We want to embody it from within. So is this mandatory to not go to the hairdressers? Obviously not. This is a game, but this is your moment to reflect on your beauty, on your inner and outer beauty, but the one that it's truly yours. And so usually when you do like a big haircut change or a big look change, is because you don't want to be, you are trying to react to something. The typical like cutting the hair after you've broken up with someone, for example, that's a trope in movies. But we do it very often. We buy ourselves different clothes. We try not to be ourselves. In Venus retrograde, this is your chance, if you want to reflect on being your own beautiful self, no matter what you're going through. You know, instead of changing completely who you are, just feel more yourself. Venus, goddess of lust, also bids us to reflect on spending, and especially that splurging, that princessy way of buying things just because we want, rebel again against probably some scarcity mindset that we have. So again, if you want, this is the time where you could be reflecting on how lustful you're being into your spending, into your relationship with others. And if you want to be more mindful or more empowered by your choice rather than addicted to it, you know, like shopaholic or whatever holic is your thing, Venus is asking you, you know, can you be with the healthy lust, the one that desire, that doesn't need attachment? And this might be a tricky concept, but if you have any questions, I'm just one DM or one free call away. So this is, yeah, and lastly, obviously, Venus, goddess of love. So we are invited to reflect on our relationship with our loved ones, the people around us. How can we be more loving? How can we feel more the love that we receive? So this is Venus in retrograde. Maybe have a look back for yourself and think if some of these themes have already come up into your life, whether you knew it or not, that it was Venus retrograde. That's, you know, that's a fun game to do. And if it isn't, or you haven't really paid attention to these themes of love, lust, and beauty, maybe do it now. Take this next week to really connect with your beauty, or connect with a loved one, or to just feel that healthy desire of just being yourself. See how that goes. And next, I'll tell you about Mercury in retrograde, which is a big one. Like, I think I've heard in videos and movies and series many times, people like, oh no, Mercury retrograde. So by now, unlike the other retrogrades, I think Mercury has become a bit mainstream. I think even people who don't really know or don't really care about astrology, they refer to Mercury retrograde. So Mercury retrograde is again this loop, this moment of reflection. We're doing that illusion on ourselves about the themes of the god Mercury. Mercury was the messenger god. He was taking the messages from one another. He's also the patron of pharmacists and the medical profession in general. It's that stick with the snake symbol that actually belongs to the god Mercury. And here again, an example on how even like the most rational, the most scientific, because they're doctors, they still are somewhat connected to spiritual and mythological tradition, like having that as a patron, having like a Roman god as a patron. So during this time, Mercury asked us to reflect on communication because he was the messenger, and therefore also traveling, because traveling is really you bringing yourself as a message somewhere else. So it's very much a planet of connection and communication, and it's asking us to reflect on how we use our voice, what kind of words we put out there. Are we being truthful? Are we being kind? Are we using this voice to amplify our gifts? Are we talking to other people about our truth, our beauty, what we have to share? Or have we been hiding it? Have we been disconnecting from ourselves, from others, from nature? So during Mercury, it's all about that communication. It's all about that bridge. And that's why it's said that we need to look after our technology, because usually Mercury retrograde, you have technology kind of like not working on you. And this is a self-fulfilling prophecy, basically. Like it's the same. Like we knew that Mercury was the god of communication. And up until now, probably in some subconscious part of our brain, we think that this is the time where technology fails us. And so, whether it happens or not, isn't it a good time to back up your computer? Like every time I know Mercury retrograde is coming, I'm like, I'm backing up all my technology, because it's a playful reminder. So instead of setting a date on my Google Calendar, I get to do all the technology backup, all the saving things and reorganizing things just before Mercury retrograde. So I don't really need to worry about it. I just live connected to the messages that are coming. It's just one way to organize your big task in a way that's just creative and playful. So we are going to have 4 Mercury retrograde this year, and I looked up when the last one has already started. We are already Mercury retrograde. Yes, so we're gonna have it. We have been having it since January 14, and it's gonna continue until February 3rd. So the idea is to look out for communication, transportation, and I would also add then healing, like as the patron of the medical profession. And he has the stick and the snake, which is poison. So here I invite you to look again at your communication, and are you being poisonous with your word, or are you being medicine with your word? So take this as an opportunity to look into these themes until February the 3rd, and see how that maybe affects your life for better. And if you don't want, you don't care, you lose nothing. This is a game. It can be very helpful. It can be very self-discovery. It can really boost your morale as well. But it's up to you to choose what serves you. You can keep with you. What doesn't serve you, you can let it go. And we're gonna have the next one, Mercury retrograde, in May until June the 3rd, from September then to October, September 9th to October 2nd, and finally December 29 to January 20. I can share the dates. They are from all the same article with all the calendar notes. So this was explanation of retrogrades, their astronomical, the historical context, and how we can use it for personal growth and reflection. So if you enjoyed this sort of information, I am also sharing with you my next event that's going to be all about actually the theme of Mercury retrograde, and that's why I called it the Inner Voice workshop. It will be a pre-recorded. In this recording, you'll have a guided toe-length meditation, which apparently is the favorite of the Dalai Lama, and it really helps to feel connected both inwards and outwards, really drawing that bridge to others. Then there will be a journaling exercise about healthy boundaries inspired by the holistic psychologist and nonviolent communication techniques. Finally, as You get also a personal card reading with the insight of a goddess, your journaling prompts, and inspired recommended action. You can sign up via email at my email, mrrigo.melanie@gmail.com, or by sending me a DM on my Instagram, mrrigomelanie.